to know, have we peaked by getting Rachel the Smoke Show Bush to tweet out, put our tweet on her Instagram and Snap story? And by that, I mean, is that the best looking girl that's ever even going to acknowledge, or even know that we ever exist our entire lives?
Yeah, I mean, I've been giving this some thought, and in my honest opinion, this takes me back to freshman, sophomore year. That's why I've got my UWM Milwaukee sweatshirt on today for you YouTube listeners. But I remember going to the gym and just only doing bench. I was just doing a lot of bench, and I maxed out, and I was like, you know what? I'm on this. I'm going to keep going higher and higher. But at some point, you just plateau. You just can't go any higher. And honestly, DJ, in our podcasting career, this could be it.
That's when you masturbate.
Let's get loaded then, because this is the Loaded Box Podcast.
Where we never finish first, because we finish last.
Thank you once again for tuning in to the Loaded Box Podcast. We are your hosts, Ben Morgan and DJ Primo, and we are going to be talking some NFL Week 13 fantasy football preview podcast. But DJ, for those who did not make sense of any of that from the intro, why don't you go ahead and paint the picture of how you stumbled into noticing the Smoke Show, Rachel Bush. For those who don't know who Rachel Bush is, one, just Google her. Two, she's married to Jordan Poyer of the Buffalo Bills. And our tweet about her made her Instagram and her Snapchat story. So how did you stumble into that? I'm so grateful that you did.
So I have a confession. I didn't actually stumble into it to myself. I haven't told you about this part.
Oh, this is
but I was just
breaking news to me then.
I kind of was just chilling there, and I got a kid that used to work with me who's in college. He just worked part-time at the same place I worked. Sent me an Instagram and sent me a Twitter message and slid into my DMs and sent me a screenshot of her Instagram story and goes, "Dude." And I go, "No way." He goes, "This is legendary." So a buddy of mine was actually just looking at her Instagram and saw that and recognized our podcast and brought it to our attention.
I love it.
That was the craziest thing ever.
So one, I'm a little upset because you lied to me, but two, I'm not even I can't even get all that mad because, yeah, man, like I said earlier, we just maxed out. We just hit that max out on bench. We think we're on the up and up, but man, where can we go from here? We cannot go anywhere else from here. She's so hot.
I mean, I'm already on my way down. I'm drinking Red's Peach Ale, so this thing is disgusting.
That's so beautiful. Well, let's get loaded. This is our preview podcast, fantasy football style. We're going to be talking daily fantasy bargains, stacks, and picks, listener fantasy questions. We got some good ones because, dude, we're in the last week of the fantasy football regular season if you're in a normal league. So you pretty pumped up? You ready for this?
Yeah.
All right, well, let's jump into some daily fantasy picks. First, I need to give you a quick shout-out because if you paid attention to DJ's daily fantasy picks last week, you crushed it with Baker. Although he only had 4 passing attempts, I believe, in the second half, he still had a great week. That's how good he was. Sony Michel, boom, over 100-some yards, crushed it. Tyler Lockett crushed it with a touchdown. If you only would have picked an active 4th player, I mean, we record this one on Tuesday, so you didn't know, but man, you could have had the week of your life.
I could have given out one later, but I figured the listeners aren't dumb enough to just blindly pick on Tuesday or Wednesday or whatever based off the podcast.
Hey, if you're this hot, they just might. Dude, you were Rachel Bush hot last week.
Yeah, it was real hot.
All right, well, let's kick it off. You crushed it with Baker last week. What's your quarterback pick for this week?
Well, I was at my son's swimming lesson, so I had to write this on a piece of paper ahead of time.
I love it.
That's sarcastic. I'm just making fun of Ryan.
That's the common denominator, though.
But I did write this on a piece of paper. So this is my QB must-play of the week. I haven't done this for a long time, but this is my must-play, regardless of price. This is my QB must-play of the week, and I can't believe I'm going to talk about this early right away, but Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, geez, surprise, breaking news.
8,200 versus Arizona. Let me say this.
Say it then.
You want to see, I know, I'm spitting. You want to see the most talented QB in the league, and you want to see that guy at his angriest? People are trying to come after Aaron Rodgers right now. They are trying to come after him, and he gets to face a weak Cardinals team at home at his angriest. This is the time where they're not going to make the playoffs. Really, they're not. Okay, I don't think that they're going to make the playoffs. If they did, they have a small chance. But if anybody was going to do it, it'd be them. They're not going to. I'm being realistic. I understand that. But this is a bad team they're playing against. Not a good team. Who is Rodgers going to take this out on? Anybody else? Perfect candidate is the Arizona Cardinals. He's going to just murder these guys. Like, he hasn't had a 5-touchdown game yet. This is the game he goes out there and he throws 5 touchdowns and he just smiles in everybody's faces and everybody gets so mad at him because Rodgers hears all this criticism. Everybody's talking about Rodgers now. It's kind of came off of McCarthy a little bit, and it's annoying me. It's annoying Rodgers, and he's going to drop fucking 400 yards in 5 touchdown passes. One of them might be rushing.
I like it that you like him more than his brother does. That's fantastic to me. 2, to be on your side here, the Cardinals just gave up a nearly perfect day to Phillip Rivers. I think he was, 28 of 29, 3 touchdowns?
Yeah, he had like 25 in a row or something. He was about to break a record.
Yeah, I think he did. What do you think? Is Aaron Rodgers maybe taking it a little bit, though? Is he going to not save McCarthy's job this time? I mean, what about that pass? It was like 3rd and 2 or whatever it was. And he just duffed it like short. Like, at this point, maybe he's just like, all right, we're not going to make the playoffs this year. I'm going to mess up a couple of passes. I'm going to get McCarthy fired, and next year I'm coming back.
See, here's the thing about the 3rd and 2 thing. I'm not worried about because he did it 3rd and 2 the other week. He gets the ball and he has the quickest release. He sometimes doesn't. He never grabs the laces on that. And I think sometimes he just doesn't have a grip, so it just ends up going to the ground. 90% of quarterbacks couldn't even try that. They just grab it and then hold on to it for a minute and probably throw it too late. He gets it out so quick that sometimes he doesn't have it. That's not what I'm worried about. It was the one that made me mad, which would have covered the spread, was the wide open touchdown.
The touchdown to Adams.
To Devontae.
Yeah.
Where he tried to finesse it in there. And all he had to do, he was so wide open, all he had to do was put it on him. I mean, personally, I don't say this about Aaron Rodgers. I could have made that throw. I really could have. All he had to do was throw it right to him. He was that wide open.
Yeah, that was a little rough. I'll give you that one as well. Don't mind the pick. I mean, after what Phillip Rivers just did to them, man, I can't hate on that too much. I'm going to get into my quarterback with my stack of the week because I'm a huge fan of my stack of the week this week. I'm going with a bargain stack of the week because I have the Broncos, Case Keenum, and Emmanuel Sanders. Keenum is $6,900. Sanders is only $7,000. Literally, we say this every week. Look at the Bengals rankings: 32nd in overall defense, 31st against the pass.
The worst.
Nearly, and 31st against the rush.
Don't care. The worst.
Yeah, the worst. Literally the worst. Just what Baker Mayfield literally just did to them last week in that first half was unbelievable. And I know Case Keenum isn't good. I'm with you on this one. Case Keenum is an average quarterback at best. It doesn't matter. It does not matter against this defense. Look at Case Keenum the last couple of weeks. Over the last 4 weeks, his high points is like 16.5. That's not anything that you're going to want to use really in DFS. I see a safe floor for him this week at 20 points. And what's been dragging him down since Keenum has been lower? Emmanuel Sanders hasn't been crushing it either lately. I know he got a touchdown last week, but this is a perfect bounce back week. Man, the Bengals are like, I don't want to say they're in tank mode, but I believe Andy Dalton just got put on IR. AJ Green, they thought he was going to be back last week, didn't end up coming back. I mean, who really knows where their intentions are and everything right now? I can't imagine Marvin Lewis surviving this. I can't imagine Andy Dalton surviving this. I think that team is just in all-out tank mode. I think you take advantage of it. I think you continue to target people that are playing against the Bengals. And this is a cheap bargain. You get Keenum and Sanders for this one.
I mean, if you don't want to give up on the Dolphins in general, you could probably become a Broncos fan because I've heard you talk about this team more than any team that I've ever heard you talk about.
I said they could compete for the wild card.
Sanders, all that stuff. You could be a Broncos fan. It'd be your new AFC team.
Yeah, I got a couple teams that I'm flirting with. They're in the mix, though. They're in the mix.
Plus, you love Tebow at one point, so it's all just kind of tied together.
Still love that guy.
Tebow doesn't exist anymore.
Let's play a little over-under with a quarterback before we move on. Are you going to go over or under 30 fantasy points out of Patty Mahomes this week? He's $9,500, most expensive, but he gets the Raiders. He's averaging 28 per game. His last outing before that bye, that was that Monday Night Football breakout, 39 points. And, yeah, I mean, the Raiders are literally just giving it up left and right. So what do you got here? Over, under 30 points, Pat Mahomes.
I'm going to go under, and here's why. Because I could see, number one, they could get a hell of a running game going against this Oakland. Number two, I could see this game being 37-3 in like going into half or something like that, and him not having to do anything anymore and just kind of maxing out at like 25 points.
Right.
2 or 3 touchdowns and then a couple of rushing touchdowns coming out of Kareem Hunt or something like that.
Yeah.
Or Tyreek Hill having to return. Like, Oakland's so bad in every aspect of the game where, like, there might be a block punt or a defensive touchdown or something like that getting included in there where Mahomes is even on the field a couple of different times.
Yeah, you kind of took what I was going to say, because I think that 30 is not out of the realm of possibilities, but I think he'll finish a little bit under that too because of what you said with Kareem Hunt. The Raiders, I'm looking at it right now, they're 15th against the pass. I feel like they're worse than that. They're dead last against the run, though. They're literally tied with the Bengals. They're dead last. Kareem Hunt, last 2 games, I don't even want to call them down games, but for him, they kind of are. He had 10 points 2 weeks ago, 18 last week. You can live with that. But the weeks before that, man, 32, 17, 34, 27. This guy is unbelievable. I think this is going to be a breakout game for Hunt. I've got some bargain plays coming up a little bit later. I think you splurge on Kareem Hunt instead of Pat Mahomes, because I don't think Mahomes is going to be able to warrant being the most expensive quarterback this week.
Fun fact, I played against Tyreek Hill 2 weeks ago, or is it last week? I can't remember, in a PPR where he scored 50 points in it, 55, and I had Carson Wentz when he scored 0, and I still won, so.
What?
Yeah, that's serious.
Okay, you got to post a screenshot of that, because I can't even believe it.
I will. It's still on. On the Yahoo they have it by week. I can show you.
Wow.
It was wild.
That is damn wild. Wow.
My team's good.
Try to back that one up. Who's your running back?
I have the combination of like Leonard Fournette, Mark Ingram, Tevin Coleman, and Aaron Jones. So
oh my God.
I just had to play 3 of those, and then I had Devontae Adams and either Robert Woods or Julian Edelman. So my team is stacked.
If you're on the losing end of that, man,
and
if someone
Bears
puts
defense.
up that many points, you just got to be just pissed.
Yeah.
That's how I was with I had McCaffrey though this last week, and I ended up placing in a FanDuel with him. But yeah, I lost my head-to-head matchup with him. It was terrible.
I'm convinced you're not going to make the playoffs in any of your leagues.
You will bite your damn tongue. All right. Who's your FanDuel running back of the week?
All right. My bargain running back of the week this week is the guy who had just an incredible game against the top 3 run defense last night. Lamar Miller is only 6,300 after last night versus Cleveland. He just blew them out of the water. I don't know where he came from, but I'm going to ride that train. Like, he's looked average. He's had a couple of decent games, but he hasn't looked as explosive. He is going up against the 28th ranked run defense in the Cleveland Browns this week. And he looked, honestly, like as explosive as I've seen him since he was in Miami. Like, he looked Miami explosive, where he just, like, every time he got the ball, it felt like he was going to burst through. Like, he had a 97-yard touchdown. Every time he touched it, I thought he was gone. Because he was just like, he looked similar to what Aaron. Do you watch Aaron Jones very often, Ben?
Yeah. I see a lot of Packers games. I mean, I live in Wisconsin.
That guy explodes whenever he touches it. It's like, holy shit, he got shot out of a cannon every time he touches the ball. Lamar Miller was doing that, and I loved it. And I think maybe they found something with him, and maybe he found something where he's not dancing. I think that was a little bit of his issues in Miami used to complain about.
It was.
He was just hitting the hole full speed, using his speed to his advantage, and he was just gone. Like, Tennessee couldn't handle it, so I'm going to ride that hot hand.
The beautiful thing about Lamar Miller, I'm just looking at some numbers of him right now. He did all of that on Monday night, 23 FanDuel points on 13 touches. Like, that's and in FanDuel, you get a half point per reception. He only caught 1 ball for 5 yards. So he basically did it all on 12 carries. He had like a 97-yard TD run. But if you look at that, when he's gotten volume, he's produced. The week before that, 25 touches, had 12 points, not too huge. Before that, he only had 14 touches. He had about 6 points. But then you look at the next couple games, over like 20 targets in both, 19 points and 17 points. And he's at $6,300 this week.
Yep.
Yeah, that's not too bad of a bargain. I actually kind of like that play. That game came out of left field for me. I told someone on Twitter probably to avoid Lamar Miller because they were going against Tennessee's defense, and they've been pretty stout against the run.
Dude, they've been like one of the best.
And then you get a 97-yard touchdown. That theory goes out the window.
But they, like, every time he carried the ball, it seemed like he went for 8 yards.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing with him. And I also give, I know you might not want to hear this, but I give a little bit of credit to Deshaun Watson on that, just because you kind of, he's to the point where when he's playing well, you have to respect that. And I think that opens up things for Lamar Miller. We saw that last year.
On the 97-yard touchdown, he had 5 guys grab him.
I like Lamar Miller. You can't talk me out of him. Yeah. I've always been a Lamar Miller guy. A guy I want to talk about is a guy where I think that the price has caught up to his production. It's Christian McCaffrey. He's 8,800, but he's at the Bucks. You were getting away with him, and I don't even want to really call it a bargain price, but at a price where he was getting so much return on what you were paying for him. It was pretty unbelievable.
Oh, ROI.
ROI, you like that one? That's
I said it.
Talk. Now he's the third most expensive on the Sunday main slate on FanDuel. Listen to this heater that he's been on, though. 41 last week against Seattle. He had a 14-point game against Detroit. But the games before that, 34, 30, and 20. He's averaging nearly 28 per game over the last 5. If you're targeting an expensive running back, would you have any hesitations about using him this week against the Bucks?
8,800 against it? No, not against the Bucks. It could be one of the higher scoring games in the NFL this year. So I wouldn't hesitate at all because he's going to be involved in that game, passing, running the ball. They can't stop anything. They are the Cincinnati Bengals of the NFC. So.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I put together a FanDuel lineup with some of my bargain plays and my stack, and I had enough money left for him, and I love my lineup this week. So I'm going to be spreading that puppy out all over the place. One of the bargain running backs that I used in that lineup, though, I'm on that Gus bus, baby. Gus Edwards. He's still only $6,400, and he gets the Falcons. Went over 100 yards last week. Only had 12 FanDuel points because he didn't have a touchdown.
Whoa.
What?
I just realized who you just said, and I'm upset.
Why? Oh, because you want to use him?
Yeah, I was going to talk about him, and you called him what I want to call him, too.
Oh, is he your flex play?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Well, you can definitely chime in then, because over 2 weeks ago he had over 20 points. Falcons are 25th versus running backs, and honestly, I mean, they might as well be the Bengals too. In my opinion, they are dead last as well. The heater, like the opposing running backs have been on against the Falcons is unbelievable. 18 to the Saints duel. That's rather impressive to actually hold them to that. But 30 to Zeke, 33 to Chubb, 12 to Duke in the same game. They were pretty good against AP in Washington, but AP has a good game once every 6 weeks. But they were terrible against James Conner. They were terrible against Joe Mixon. They were terrible against Kamara and Ingram duo earlier in the year. And now Gus is literally that volume guy for Baltimore. He's had 40 carries over the last 2 weeks and over 230 rushing yards. Baltimore, no matter what anyone says, I mean, I don't think anyone could disagree that they are a run-first team, especially with Lamar Jackson at quarterback. I'm going to roll with Gus. He's the biggest bargain on the board for me. I think everyone's going to use him, but I think you're just leaving points and money on the table if you're not using him this week.
Yeah. You pretty much literally said what I was going to say on my notes. You actually used half the words that I used in my notes here. Play terrible Atlanta D, I said.
Bingo.
And then I said, ride the new bus of the AFC North. You got that one? Did you get it?
I like that.
Bus,
the old Jerome connection?
The AFC North? Yeah. So I played a little game there. I said he's had over 100 yards in the last 2 games, around 20 carries in each of those games, 17 and 23. So you pretty much said that and did the math for me.
Yeah.
And then my prediction for Gus this week is 150 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Wow, I love it. If that happens, man, I will not be going playoff less in my leagues, man, because I picked that puppy up. All my free agent money went to that brother.
Yeah, I picked him. Why didn't you pick him up in our other league where I beat you in?
Don't want to talk about it. Let's move on.
Oh, I had him.
You talked about playing games. I've got a game if you want to play a game.
I didn't. I had.
Want to play a game?
Sure.
You know a game we play at this point. It's the wide receiver version of Who Am I?
Oh, I haven't looked at this.
All right, good. Pay attention. I think you'll get this one. I got to remember who it is myself. All right, don't cheat too much here. This week on FanDuel, I am the 9th most expensive at $7,800, despite being on one of the league's most explosive offenses. Clue number 2. I've hit double-digit points in all but 1 week this year. I'm averaging over 15 FanDuel points per game. Number 3. I am wide receiver 14 right now in half-point redraft leagues, despite having just 3 touchdowns, while I also have a teammate ranked 1 spot ahead of me as wide receiver 13. So there you go. You know that there's two good guys on this team, an explosive offense. Do you have a guess, or do you want the last clue? The last clue doesn't give it away too much, but it is probably the best clue for you.
I'm trying to think here.
This was tough. I didn't give you too much.
This is a tough one. I'm trying to think of explosive offenses with two good wide receivers. And I'm just running through my head. Is it Juju Smith-Schuster? I don't know.
Oh, that's a great guess. However, it is not. I'll give you the last clue real quick.
Fuck.
I am on my third NFL team, despite being in the league just 5 years.
I don't know if that... I feel like I'm failing this one.
That didn't help you, huh?
Good wide receiver on his third NFL team?
Yep.
Shit.
Oh, you're going to kick yourself when you miss this one. There's people probably just screaming in their headphones right now listening to this podcast.
I've gotten him every single week.
Like, DJ, you're his teammate's biggest fan. Maybe that's a fifth clue.
I'm his teammate's biggest fan.
The other wide receiver, you're a huge fan of him. Started last year with a man crush.
What?
Oh, this has gone on long enough. I have to give it up.
Yeah, give it to me. I didn't even hear half of what you said there.
All right. It's Brandon Cooks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Brandon Cooks. I'm not opposed at all to using Brandon Cooks. Let me spitball a little bit here while I pull something up. Because I was kind of surprised that he wasn't a little bit more expensive. And it's funny because Robert Woods is just as good, but he's a little bit more expensive than Robert Woods. Cooks is $7,800. Woods is $7,300. I was surprised Cooks didn't have more touchdowns this year. But I'm actually a big fan of Cooks. I mean, that guy, without the touchdowns, still averaging 15 per game. His last three, 20 points, 22 points, 15 points. The dude gets it done, and because so many other wide receivers are doing so much, he hardly gets talked about. If you're going to go with like a mid-range play, I love Brandon Cooks this week.
I'm very disappointed in myself right now, honestly. I didn't even get to the Rams in my head. I was like, Chase, Patriots, Steelers. And I never got to the Rams in my head.
I really thought maybe you would you'd come to them because, yeah, you just go through the offenses. Well, a lot of those offenses have two good receivers. So Juju wasn't a bad guess, but...
I was like trying to think. I was like, no, it's not. Like Sammy Watkins and Tyreek Hill. I was like I was all over the place. Yeah. 3 teams. I didn't even think last 3 years, essentially, so...
Well, that is my my medium play for a couple of bargain plays. You mentioned Sammy Watkins right there. If Sammy Watkins plays, I'm going to put a caveat in there because of what happened to DJ last week. If he plays, he's only $6,000 and he's at Oakland. The last 3 healthy games that Sammy Watkins has played, he's averaged 15 per game. At $6,000, that's a bargain. One other bargain option, DJ Moore, only $6,400 at Tampa. Tampa Bay 27th versus the pass. Last 2 weeks for DJ Moore, he's put up 25 and 14 points. I don't even care if Funchess comes back and he plays. I just said this on Twitter to a guy a little bit ago. In my opinion, Funchess at this point is a speed bump. DJ Moore is like taking that next step. He's becoming Cam Newton's go-to guy. I don't see Cam Newton and the Panthers really messing around this week. They've been in so many close games recently. I think they stick it to Tampa, and I think DJ Moore goes for over 100 and a touchdown.
Yeah, I'm hard to say anything good about the Panthers at this point.
Yeah, they've upset me quite often. I'm going to talk a little bit more about them in our next podcast, the Against the Spread podcast, because, yeah, they broke my heart last week. So I already took your flex play.
Yeah.
Do you have any other wide receivers?
I have a wide receiver. Yeah.
All right, who you got?
So now I've got another term for you, my sneaky play of the week here.
Ooh.
This is a person you never would have talked about. I don't think we've maybe mentioned his name probably one time in 2 years. I'm going to go out and say that we mentioned this guy's name one time in 2 years of this podcast. My wide receiver plays for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. His name is Adam Humphries.
Oh, wow.
$6,000 versus Carolina. Talk about a bargain play. I don't know if you have noticed yet, but Humphries has scored 4 touchdowns in the last 4 games.
Yeah.
Yeah. No touchdowns before that. So all 4 of his touchdowns have been in the last 4 games. 2 in the 4 games ago, and then 1 in each of the last 2. Carolina's secondary really has become just a liability here.
Big time, yeah.
Seattle, the only way they could win that game is by Russell doing bullshit Russell things where I don't even want to talk about Seattle and Russell because Russell really isn't the greatest quarterback. He just does good when defenses are sitting way back. And the coverage is going to focus on Mike Evans. Sean Jackson hasn't been that much of a factor, and he was never really that much of a factor last year when Winston was playing quarterback. He really does better when Fitzpatrick is out there.
Who's that?
What?
Who's that?
Sean Jackson.
Oh, Deshaun Jackson, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if him and Jameis I don't know. He loves Mike Evans so much.
Yeah.
But he also gets Humphreys involved. Humphreys just finds those holes in the zones. He's that sneaky little white boy that nobody covers. And he gets the ball. I love him. I think he'll have somewhere around 7-8 receptions, like 67 yards, and maybe sneak in there for a touchdown. That could be a solid 15 points for you there. It's a cheap play if you have Todd Gurley on your team.
Oh, for sure, because he's the expensive guy. But you can make room if you use a guy like that. You hit it with, obviously, Mike Williams is the go-to guy. Chris Godwin started the season with 4 out of 5 games in double-digit points. Since then, that's like 7 weeks. He's had one game over double-digit points. He's only combined for 7 catches over the last 2 weeks. And, that's who it's been. It's been Humphreys. Even the tight end, like everyone was pretty high on Bright last week. He only had 3 catches for like 30 yards. He did score.
Score a touchdown. That's all that matters.
And that's all that matters. And I'll talk about him in a second because I'm using him again as my daily fantasy tight end. But, I was all about Godwin, and it started out so well. But, Chris Humphreys. Adam Humphreys is now more expensive than Godwin and Deshaun Jackson. So FanDuel's kind of noticing, but he's still so cheap that he's a definite bargain play. So I don't mind that at all.
We might as well call Chris Humphreys Chris Kardashian, because there's no way we would know him about, or Kris Jenner.
When's the last time someone said Chris Humphreys on a podcast?
I don't know.
I think we
Probably when they were talking about the Kardashians.
Probably. I think we just like had a milestone there. I'm going to make my tight end segment real quick because I'm going to keep taking Bright as long as he's cheap. He's only $4,900. So rather than spending over $1,000 more for one of the top 5 guys, I'm going to go against the guy that's going against the 22nd best secondary and just hope he gets another touchdown. So I'm going Bright. If you don't like Bright, if you want to jump off that train, I cannot believe that his price is where it is. Eric Ebron is only $5,600. I know he's playing the Jags, but I don't think it matters at this point. The Indianapolis Colts are rolling offensively, and the Jags are not near what they were last year on defense. And Jack Doyle's on IR now. Eric Ebron has 11 touchdowns this year. That's like 3 times more than he's had in his entire career, I feel like.
Yep. I didn't listen to anything you just said because I was reading the overrated, underrated listener questions, so I got in a whole nother world.
Oh, hey, that's totally fine. Everyone knows you don't like tight ends anyways.
When you said tight ends, honestly, I went blank and I didn't fucking hear anything you said.
I should have just imagined that you probably would have gone away anyways. Before we get into those listener questions, I'm going to talk real quick about Pristine Auction because they hooked us up with this sweet giveaway. If you're watching on YouTube, it is a Blaze Green Bay Packers mini helmet signed by Just Blaze. Signed by Devontae Adams. If you're not watching on YouTube and you're just listening, do your best to imagine what it looks like. But it's pretty simple. Just got to follow us on Twitter at LoadedBox. Find the tweet that we talk about the promotion. It's always near the top or it's our pinned tweet. You shouldn't have any issues finding it. Make sure that you retweet it, tag a friend, and then show some proof of you being subscribed either on iTunes or Google Play, and you'll be entered to win this puppy. We'll be giving it away in December. But thanks again to Pristine Auction. Make sure you check them out at pristineauction.com. With that, DJ, we've got some kind of loaded listener questions here because, playoffs are on the line. We've got some tough start sits. These are the ones it's almost like you pay so much attention to them, but you don't want to overthink it. You just got to continue to do what you've been doing all season, but it's tough because literally your season's on the line. This first one's not too much about redraft. It's more dynasty, so we'll kick this one off first. It's how much do you like Philip Lindsay in a dynasty league, and what would you be willing to give up for him?
That's really tough for me. The fact that Royce Freeman is also on that team, who's going to exist because they drafted him for a reason there and make plays, makes me a little bit more nervous. Obviously, they're going to use both of them in some sort of fashion. Also, I don't like that whole coaching staff, so you don't know how much and when Philip Lindsay is going to be used. Hopefully, they kind of get rid of those guys. And your best bet is that Lindsay or Freeman honestly go somewhere else, which I don't see happening because they're both rookies at this point. So you don't get rid of those two guys 1-2 punch. It makes me a little bit nervous. I love Philip Lindsay. I do love him. I just don't know
how much you can love him.
Much confidence you have in a guy that you can deploy. You don't know how much he's going to be deployed.
Right.
So I'm not giving up a ton.
Yeah.
But he's a guy I really like if he's in a different situation.
See, I sort of think about that backfield the same way I thought of the early years with Devontae Freeman and Tevin Coleman. I think he's the Tevin Coleman in that situation, but I think he gets more volume than Coleman because honestly, Lindsay has looked much better than Freeman. Lindsay's been unstoppable. Dude, Did you see that play? This is a little bit off topic, but did you see that play last week where he got shoved out of bounds, slid on that like really slippery shit on the NFL field that I don't know why it's there, and then popped up like it was like no big deal to him?
No, but I had a lot of things I wanted to talk about from last week.
I will retweet it. It is fantastic. It is like the coolest thing that I've ever seen on that slidey thing. I wish you'd have known. But man, I'm a big Philip Lindsay fan. I don't want to like overshoot what his value is at this point just because he is a rookie and they did draft Freeman for a reason. But man, maybe I'd try to offer like a second rounder for him. And if that didn't slide, I maybe offer a first for him, but maybe try to get a second or a third back in return.
I gotta be honest.
That'd be my take.
I was a bigger Philip Lindsay fan like before this last week because he reminds me of like what I used to kind of play like when I was younger. But then I saw him after the game. I don't know if you saw him in the locker room after the game, and I immediately am out on Philip Lindsay because that hair and that style and that face, that guy could not be an NFL running back. And nope. I can't allow that guy to be a successful NFL running back. So ever since I saw him, I got so grossed out that I had to like look away. I was like, oh God, this guy can't fucking look like this. In the NFL, you just can't.
He looks like a couch from the 1970s.
He does. He needs to get beat up. I can't take that guy right now. I was such a fan of him too, and then I saw him and immediately hated him.
Yeah, he's not an NFL running back. Don't look at him. Just look at his stats. It's better that way.
Oh, I can't. That picture or video is forever engraved in my brain, and I can't get it out. I have nightmares about it.
Right. Let's go to a redraft question here. Who are you starting rest of the season? His current running backs are Saquon and your boy Aaron Jones, and his receivers are Tyreek Hill and DeAndre Hopkins. Flex options are Gus Edwards, LaShawn McCoy, and Amari Cooper. So if I'm reading this right, I feel like you need to choose one of those three. Yeah.
Easy. You got to go with Gus at this point. I feel like the Ravens have found their running back guy that they're going to hand the ball to, feed him a bunch. McCoy, fuck that. No. And Amari Cooper has Dak. I don't think he's going to continue on what he is. Dak, I still think Dak and the Cowboys are hot garbage. They've just had a couple of hot games. You're not going to see that continue. You got to go with Gus here.
And I'm with you. I'm going to go Gus rest of season. I also want to play matchups a little bit, but if you look at the rest of the season for Baltimore, they've got some real juicy matchups against the running backs. And it's almost like you could plug in Gus for Aaron Jones if you wanted to play Amari Cooper at some point. But nope. Aaron Jones is slowly creeping in over the last 3 or 4 weeks, whatever it's been. He's been into that system where he's a consistent RB2 or a flex player. You don't want to go without him as well.
He's an RB1, baby.
Well, if a running back's scoring for that team, it's him. And that team at some point is going to be scoring. And look at the teams that the Packers play now. They've got the Cardinals, the Falcons. I forgot who else was after that. But they've got some relatively decent matchups coming up as well where you can get some fantasy points.
Yeah, he's an RB1. He's an RB1.
All right, well, he's an RB2 or flex.
It's just facts. He's RB1. You do not bench Aaron Jones, period.
All right, on the period. We got one more here. Who to use in your flex position out of Mike Evans? He's got Carolina this week. Philip Lindsay, he is at the Bengals this week. Or Joe Mixon, he's versus the Broncos. Already starting Kareem Hunt, Saquon Barkley. You're definitely not dumping them. And at wide receiver, you're already starting Michael Thomas and Keenan Allen. You're not dumping them. So flex between Mike Evans, Philip Lindsay, and Joe Mixon.
Process of elimination, I'm getting rid of Mike Evans just because I don't trust Jameis Winston. He's the one I trust the least out of all this, and I like Mike Evans, but if I have to choose between these three guys, I'm eliminating Mike Evans. Cincinnati's bad at everything. and Joe Mixon gets to go against Denver's terrible run defense.
They're last on everything.
I think I have to go Joe Mixon. Personally, if I had to choose between those three, I think I'm going to go with the guy I know who's going to get. They don't have their quarterback. They're going to dump it off to him. He's going to get the ball handed to him a ton. It's going to be a lot of Joe Mixon against one of the other bad running Ds. So I'm going to go Joe Mixon. Fuck it.
Well, you have to go Mixon because you just threw Philip Lindsay under the bus and his hair.
Yeah, I hate him.
So he's out for you. Same kind of thought process you had. I'm between Philip Lindsay and Joe Mixon. This is really tough. I don't even like really benching Mike Evans, but I think in this situation you do because I give a slight edge to Philip Lindsay. Like I said earlier, I think Cincinnati is kind of just on this downfall. I don't even think it's gradual. Like they are falling off the cliff right now. The nice thing about Mixon is he can make an impact in the passing game. They're going to be playing from behind. Jeff Driscoll, my boy Jeff Driscoll, is going to be throwing some checkdowns to Mixon. I think he's going to have a decent game still. But, man, Lindsay just kind of seems like the play here for me. And I know he's going to be battling for touches in that one. But slight edge to Lindsay. The beautiful thing, man, you've got options. You've got some nice options here. All right.
Beautiful.
You got anything else you want to talk about? Or should we?
There is actually one thing I wanted to talk about that I wish I would have talked about in the middle of the podcast because I hope people made it this far. And there's better spots to bring this up. Honestly, this is a terrible transition. But so many fucking weird things happen in the NFL this week. I just needed to point them out because it's Tuesday and I didn't want to do this on Thursday's episode. So, Njoku's jump.
Yes.
David Njoku's, he caught the ball and I was like, I got him on my fantasy team. So I'm like, oh, really wanted him to get in, and he jumped. I'm like, oh, no chance he gets it now.
Nope.
And then somehow lands on one foot. Like, hey, guys, push it. What happened there?
All right. Remember when I texted you right after that? I'm like, it's like he thought he had a superpower, and then he didn't. And then all of a sudden, somehow that superpower came to life, and he ended up in the end zone. That was fantastic.
It was wild. Number 2, the Chris Carson flip was fucking amazing.
Yep.
I know his knee touched the ground, but he full out flipped. That was awesome.
Yep. I can't say anything else. That was great.
The brawl in the Jaguars Buffalo game was incredible.
Yeah.
That was one of the best fights of all time.
And you want to know what that opened up for us? That brawl.
Bush.
Exactly. That brawl sparked my tweet, and that is what brought Rachel into our lives. I'm talking about her like she's like my neighbor now.
I love her. She loves us. We're getting married to her. Number 4.
We're getting married to her.
And I don't know if anybody noticed this besides me, but I fucking texted it to you because I was like, whoa, what just happened? Josh Rosen was rolling out to his right, looking down the field, and all of a sudden this yellow flag comes in, hits him in the chest, and lands on his arm as he's about to throw it away, and he looks down. It was just he noticed it as it happened, and I about fell off my chair, and I'm like, how is nobody I finally saw a tweet today about it, but I'm like, how is nobody tweeting about this? A ref threw a flag as in the middle of a play and hit the quarterback with the ball. It was awesome.
Imagine how confused he must have been. I didn't get to see it. I remember your text explaining that to me. But here's my beef with that. I get that
my God, it was great.
The refs will throw the flag in the general direction, so I think it's so that they can continue to remember what number the flag might be on.
And where it was.
But I mean, isn't there a better way of doing that? Remember that guy? I think it was the Browns got popped in the eye by one of those bags, and it made him go blind. Screw that. Can you imagine if your franchise quarterback would have just gotten hit in the eye by a flag and he would have been down? Terrible.
They throw the flag to mark where they were, but my favorite part was he noticed it. He looked down at the flag and he must have been thinking the fuck was that? Did a beard was hit me? I couldn't even imagine. It was just entertaining. It was the Cardinals suck, so that was just one of the funnest things
that is pretty great.
All weekend, and nobody else seemed to notice it besides me. I was so upset.
So now not only are quarterbacks dodging 300 or not 300 pound defenders, some of them are, but 250 pound speed rushers. Now they have to dodge ref flags. That's what it's coming to.
Poor Josh Rosen.
Nice. You got anything else, or should we wrap her up?
Oh, that was it. I couldn't hardly control myself.
I actually liked that. I liked putting those all together. It was good. It was a great ending. We went out with a bang. As always, check us out on Twitter at LoadedBox. Check out our website, loadedboxpodcast.com. We've got all of our podcasts there. We've got our blogs, our weekly stardom, sit-ems, waiver wire, betting stuff, anything you need, just go there. We're on iTunes, we're on Google Play, search Loaded Box, subscribe, rate, and review. And with that, DJ, send us out.
Bye.